All right, this is Coach Williams, and we are going over the Algebra 1 midterm review for chapters 4 through 5. And we actually only go through section 3 on chapter 5. So this is chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the first 3 sections of chapter 5. This isn't necessarily in order of the chapters, so we'll just kind of go through it and attack each problem as we come to them. The first sets of problems we're going to work with are inequalities, and mainly inequalities dealing with a number line. We don't have the graphs of them per se, but the inequalities on a number line. So the first number line that we have here shows a shaded region to the left, and then at 10 we see an open dot. Now let's remember this. I'm going to write it in red so you can see this a little better. Remember that an open dot means that it can only be greater than or less than, right? And if it's a closed dot, then that means we can have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Okay, so knowing that, we can eliminate maybe some of our answers already. Can this be equal to 10 on A? No, it can't be because that's an open dot. So A is already not going to work for us on this one. All right, and so what we need to find out, though, is it's going to be all the values to the left of, and left means what? Less. And then to the right, we know that it is greater than, right? So we can write it on this way. Greater than. All right, so this is to the left. So our inequality sign needs to look like this, with the variable, we'll say, being over here, right? And then we know it's going to be less than 10. So this is what we want to find in our equations that we have, or our inequalities that we have listed here. We know A can't be that. But what about B? If I subtracted or moved the 5 to the other side, if I subtract 5 from both sides, this goes away. What does this equation become, or inequality become? X less than 10. Is that the same thing? Yeah, it's the same thing. X less than 10. So B is one of our answers, one of our answer choices. And this is one of those that has multiple answers, so let's make sure we check all of them, because if you notice, C is already X minus 10. So is it an answer choice that we want to select? Yes, it is. And letter D, we don't have it in that form, so we're going to have to move some stuff around. We're going to have to work, our algebra, we'll say, to get X by itself. So we need to isolate X and then find out what the equation is going to be. I've got a negative 10, and I'm going to move that to the other side. Again, when we move it, we treat this just like we would an equal sign. When we're adding, subtracting on both sides, we can just move it across, and it just changes the sign of the term we're moving. So this would become 10, a positive 10 on this side, right? And then that's still going to be, the sign stays the same way. And if you read this, 10 is greater than X, or if you read it the other way, X is less than 10, this is the same thing as that, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, it's the same thing. If you read it this way, 10 greater than X, you read it backwards, X is less than 10. And that's what we're looking for, is X less than 10. So D is also one of our answers. And then on the last choice here, we're going to have to add 11 to both sides, or we just move 11 to the other side. This will go away. We add 11 over here. Again, when we're adding, it doesn't do anything to the inequality sign. So X is going to be less than 2 plus 11, which is 13. Is that what we're looking for? No. So our answer choices would be B, C, and D for number 1. The next one is just matching these inequalities to the equations that are down below. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see all these at the same time. And if you'll look here, we're going to need to get the variable by itself once again so that we can see what it should be as far as the variable goes, what the value of the variable is going to be. Here we're going to divide by 4 divide by 4 to get n by itself. The 4's go away, become a 1, so n's going to be less than 24 divided by 4, which is 6. And we're dividing by a positive number, and so it doesn't change the inequality sign. If we were dividing by a negative or multiplying by a negative, then it reverses the inequality. So that's something we need to remember as we move forward. So n less than 6. Do we have something that is less than 6? Is this going to be a closed or open dot? Open dot. Because it cannot be equal to. So it's going to be an open dot. And then what else are we going to notice about this? It's going to go to the left or to the right? Left. So it's going to go that direction. So we need to find something at 6 that looks like that right there. E. E is right here. We've got 6, open dot on top. Everything goes to the left. So that's going to be our answer for number 2. All right. The next one, we're going to have to take. We've got a fraction. Don't panic. Fractions are not hard. We know that if we've got a fraction and we need to divide by a fraction, we really multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal being what? 4 over 1. In this case, it's negative, so we'll just keep it negative so that we divide by everything that's in front of f. And if we do it to this side, we have to do it to this side as well. So the 4's and the 1's and the negative cancel over here. That's going to leave us with an f. We're dividing by negative. Yes, we have to switch the inequality. So we're divided by a negative, so we reverse the inequality. Reverse the inequality. So now this becomes this. So now f is greater than something, and that something is negative 4 times negative 3, and negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. So if I change this to where my f is on the left, which is kind of the standard way of doing that, it's just going to be f greater than 12. Is this open or closed dot? It's open still. There's no equal sign, so it's open, and it's going to the right because it's greater than. So which graph shows us greater than 12 with an open dot? C. C has an open dot over 12, goes to the right. C should be the answer to number 3. Number 4, we're dividing by 2, so how do we undo division? Multiply, exactly. And we multiply by 2, and that's going to give us k by itself. So we multiply by 2 on both sides. The 2's go away. K is going to be greater than or equal to. Does the inequality reverse here? No. Why not? It's multiplied by a positive. It's not a negative, so that's good. So, okay, it stays the same, and it's going to be a negative 24. So this one's going to be an open or closed dot. Closed, and which side is it going pointing to? The right, because it's greater than. So we have a negative 24 somewhere here. A, negative 24, closed dot, points to the right because it's greater than. Okay, so number 4 should be A. Number 5, we've got a negative 3. We're divided by negative 3. Again, how do we undo division? Okay, multiply by negative 3. And multiply by negative 3 on the other side. Yes, we've got to change the sign. We've got to reverse the inequality because we divided by a negative. So that goes away, and D becomes greater than or equal to, and negative 3 times 12, negative 36. So it's a closed dot. It goes to the right of a negative 36. And I'm hearing F is our answer here. And if we look at F, we've got negative 36, closed dot, it goes to the right. So that should be our answer. All right, number 6, 18 greater than 3/5 W. How do we get rid of the fraction? Well, we're going to flip the fraction and multiply by that, right? We're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we'll multiply by 5 over 3. 5 over 3. That'll make the 5's go away and the 3's go away over here. And then we multiply by 5 over 3 on the other side. And when we multiply by 5 over 3 over here, we can either divide by the 3, which we get 6, and 5 times 6 is 30. Or we can multiply 5 times 18, which is 90. And 90 divided by 3 is 30. So either way, we'll get 30. W is less than 30. We could also write it like this. We could change sides. Right? So W has to be less than 30. Open or close dot. Open. And which direction should it point? To the left, right? All right, so we're looking for 30, and it's going to the left. It looks like B. Yeah, right in there should be 30. It's an open dot on 30, and it points to the left. It's all the values less than 30. So this will be B. And the last one, divide by -6, divide by -6. And we will have T. -36 divided by -36 is 6, but we divided by a negative, so our sign has to change. Our inequality has to reverse. So we're greater than or equal to 6, a solid dot, and we're going to the right, and we have a positive 6. So, yes, D is the answer to number 7. All right, not too difficult. It looks a little scary at first, but because it's been a while since we've done some of those. But sounds like you guys are getting the hang of it pretty quick. Okay, let's move on to number 8. Number 8, we have two pairs of points that lie on lines, or perpendicular lines, we'll say. This is what they're looking for. We've got to find out which ones they are. And this is where we're going to have to take what we're given and apply a formula that works for what they give us. Right? In this case, they give us 2 points. And what we know about perpendicular lines is that there's something to do with 2 lines and an attribute of that line that tells us they're perpendicular. Do you know what that is? What do we look at to see if lines are parallel or if they're perpendicular? What do we look at on the line itself? What about the slope? If lines are parallel, what do we know about the slopes? Slopes are the same. If we have perpendicular lines, what happens to the slopes? They're opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. Yes, so example like Israel just says, if you have 3 over 1, then something that's perpendicular to that will be negative 1 over 3. It is an opposite reciprocal. Okay? Opposite reciprocal, and we're talking about the slope, so we're talking about M. So if M is equal to 3 over 1, the perpendicular to that will be negative 1 over 3. If it's parallel, it'd just be the same slope, right? Because that means those 2 lines would never intersect or never cross because their slope's the same. They just keep going beside each other forever and forever and forever. All right? So we're looking for this. We're looking for an opposite reciprocal. And remember, they gave us 2 points. So we're going to have to use our 2-point slope form or formula, which is M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, I'll go ahead and mention this now. We will give you guys formulas for, all the things that we're going to have questions over. But at the same time, we're going to also offer that you guys can use a cheat sheet, to write down more formulas or examples if you would like to on the midterm. So if you're so inclined, you can do a half-size sheet of paper, front and back, and you can put down any formulas or examples that you want to write down for the midterm for Algebra 1 midterm this week. Okay, so take advantage of that. This is one of the things you won't have to worry about. This will be a formula that you will have. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we just need to drop these points into that formula find the slopes and see if we can find an opposite reciprocal. For A, we're going to have 10 minus 16. You're on the right track. 10 minus 16. And then x2 minus x1 is going to be 3 minus 6. Everybody see where we got that? We're going to take the 10 minus the 16, take the 3 minus the 6. All right, that's going to give us negative 6 over negative 3, which is the same thing as what? Just a positive 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is just a positive 2. Okay? And so then we'll move to B. And here we're going to have our y2 value is what? Negative 12. And we're going to subtract. Watch this. Make sure you put that in parentheses because it is negative so that we can deal with our signs here in just a minute. Then we're going to have negative 8 minus a negative 5. Again, putting that in parentheses. When we have a negative, or minus a negative, it's just positive. So these are just going to change to plus. Okay? And so then now we have negative 12 plus 3 is going to give us negative 9. Negative 8 plus 5, negative 3. And so we end up with a positive 3. We're not getting anywhere on this one. I know. We're a little disappointed here. So let's work number C, or letter C. C is going to be 4 minus 3 all over 0 minus 2. Well, 4 minus 3 is just 1. And 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. So, did we find our perpendicular lines? Yes. Here and here, we found our perpendicular lines. Line A is perpendicular to line C because they are opposite reciprocals. Remember, this is our perpendicular symbol, right? So, A and C is the answer to number 8. Okay, number 9, 10, 11, and 12. You're just matching the information below with the correct linear function. And this is going to be real good because it's going to remind us of how to look at the equation and be able to pick out parts and pieces of it that should give us tips on solving things for us in this case. We've got number 9 says a slope of 4 and y-intercept of negative 2. Well, that should be real easy. Our equations are all in y equals mx plus b, or our slope-intercept form here. So can I pick out the slope of 4 and a y-intercept of negative 2 from these 4 equations? Yeah. Which one is it? Slope of 4, b. Yeah, slope of 4, y-intercept of negative 2. That's an easy one. What about number 10? Number 10 says, and this is kind of in our function, notation here, the value when we plug in a 0 for x. Okay, we plug a 0 from x. What comes out of the equation? A 4. Now, just stopping right there, that also tells us the point 0, 4. And anytime x is 0 and we have a y value, what is that also known as? When x is 0, y has a value, that's our, what is it? Our y-intercept. Yes, thank you, Ms. Garner. Y-intercept. So we can also know that that's also b equals a positive 4. Which one has b equals a positive 4? A. And if you think about that also, we plug a 0 in for x, what do we end up with? Positive 4. So that one, we don't even have to plug in the rest of it. We know this one's going to be A. But if we did plug it in, negative 1 times 9 is negative 9, plus 4 is a negative 5, so that's what we would get there. On number 11, 0, 0, what does that tell us? Where's the y-intercept on this one? It's 0. So what has a y-intercept of 0 in our answer choices or our options up there? Which one has a y-intercept of 0? D. D. D has a y-intercept of 0. And 0, 0 is one of our points, so that we know that's our y-intercept. And if we plugged in a 0 for x, y would obviously be 0 as well. So this one will have to be D. And lastly, what is the y-intercept on this line in the graph? -1 is our y-intercept right there. And so we could plug, we know it's C, but we could also just by looking at the graph know that with the y-intercept of -1, it has to be C, because that's the only equation up there with a y-intercept of -1. And then if we wanted to go further, we could say, well, the slope is 1 over 1, 1 over 1, 1 over 1, positive 1 over 1, and that is what we have right there in front of the x on C. So this is C for number 12. All right, let's flip the page. On this one, we're supposed to match the description below with the correct graph. And the description is a common difference of 2. And you might remember this, we talked about common differences. A common difference of 2, and what they're talking about here is the output values. The output values. When I plug in this x value, what comes out? Well, the output value in this case here, we're looking for differences, a common difference, meaning that between every y value, we should have a difference of 2, right? So we could take 1, add 2, we get the next one. Add 2, we get the next one, or vice versa. Subtract 1, or subtract the 2 from the 1, and you get, the next one. Subtract 2, we get the next point. Subtract 2, we get the next point. On A, what is the y value common difference between 4, 6, 8, and 10? 2. So it looks like A is our answer, but let's check the other ones, right? From here to here, we went up 2. From here to there, we went up 2. From there to there, we went up 2. That's our common difference. On D, there's, 36 to 27? That's not even close to 2. That can't be it, right? The difference between the output values is way too great. On B, we're going down by 3. And then 3 again, then 3 again. This one has a common difference of 3. So that's not it. E, does E even have a common difference? No, it does not. I mean, the difference here is not the same as there or there. In fact, this is not even linear. This is more like a quadratic type equation. So this is not even a linear equation. And then on C, our last chance, this is going up by 9. So the common difference here is 9. So this is not it. A is, in fact, our answer. It's number 13. All right, number 14. Determine which lines, if any, are parallel and explain. Now, we talked a minute ago about parallel lines, and what are we looking for on parallel lines to determine if they are, in fact, parallel or not? What needs to be the same? Same slope. So, parallel. And remember, we talked about this when we did our notes and our practice and review for our test when we did parallel lines. Parallel means same slope. In fact, you've probably seen me write this on previous videos. Parallel means same slope. So we're looking for the same slope. Now, they give us 2 points on every line. They give us 2 points on every line. And something that will make it a little easier, let's label this A, B, and C. So line A, B, and C, that'll help us out here in just a second. And I need to find the slope of all these lines. Now I can do the 2-point slope formula like we did a while ago and find the slope that way. Or they give us the graph. So what's the easiest way to find the slope? Just count from point to point, right? Okay, I've got heads shaking. Yeah, that's what I would do. All right, so if I'm going to go from this point to this point, moving from left to right, we always move left to right. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, 2. So the slope of A is 5 over 2. On B, we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 2. So we went up 4, and we went over 2. We say it, then we write it, right? All right, then we go to C. We go up 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 2. So from here to there, we also have a slope of 4 over 2. This is the same thing as 2. And if you'll notice, 2 of these lines have the same slope. Which ones are they? B and C. So we didn't even have to do the slope formula for this. We could have. But the graph allows us to just count the slope, on the grid. And so we know that line B is parallel to line C. And it says explain. And so why is it parallel to each other? Same slope. Okay, so that's the answer to number 14. All right, let's move along. Number 15, in solving the system of linear equations below, which of the following are valid substitutions? Now, this is going to have us do a little bit of work here. But if we're going to solve by substitution, we have to isolate variables. So we have to isolate the y variables and isolate the x variables. And then we'll find out what those expressions are for each variable and see what we can substitute in. So this is just finding out, can you solve for y and can you solve for x? And we have to be able to do that when we're using substitution and solving linear equations by substitution. So let's look at the first equation. Okay, I'm going to take the second equation and I'm going to work it over here. But the first equation we're going to work right here. Solving for x. Solving for x. I'm going to move the negative 5y to the other side. And so my first, resulting equation is going to be negative 2x. It's going to equal 16 plus 5y, right? Because I'm just going to move it over. It changes the sign. So 16 plus 5y. Then I'm going to divide by 2, or negative 2. Divide by negative 2. And that is what x equals. X equals 16 plus 5y divided by 2. Do you see that anywhere down here? Is that expression down here as my answer choices? No. So that's not available. And then we've got for the y value for this equation, I'm going to move the x term across instead. And so the resulting first equation here would be negative 5y equals 16 plus 2x. And then I'm going to divide by negative 5. Divide by negative 5. Do I see that one anywhere? Because that will go away. That leaves me with y. Is this expression anywhere down there? I don't see that one either. Do you? Okay. Let's look at the second equation. See if we can find any for that one. The second equation, if I'm solving for x, I'm going to move the negative 3y to the other side. So the first equation here, solving for x, is going to be x equals 15 plus 3y. Do I have that one? Sure do. It's right there, D. So D is one of my answer choices for substitution. It's a valid substitution for x. So that one works. And then for y, I'm going to move the x term across. So the first equation is going to be negative 3y equals 15 minus x. Then what do I need to do to get y by itself? Divide by negative 3. And the negative 3's go away, so y equals this whole expression. Do I have that one on there? I sure do. A. I don't have this one, and I don't have that one. So A and D are my two answer choices for 15. Those are valid substitutions if I want to solve these equations by substitution. All right, 16 through 19. I'm not going to work through this one. This is really, really easy. This was on the first section for 5.1. You'll notice if you want to go watch this, this is going to be 5.1 through 5.3 videos. And this was actually probably the easiest thing to do. We could, if we wanted, solve each system of linear equations by graphing, by substitution, by elimination. But the simplest thing to do, and this was the first section we did on 5.1, is just plug in this value and see if it works. Remember we said, is this a valid solution to this system of equations? We saw that over and over in our notes in practice. We worked several examples. And so all we have to do here is take 4 and 2 and plug it in to see if it works for both equations, or here, or here, or here. Okay, so the easiest process would be just to plug these in and try them. And that's a valid way of determining if it is a solution of, the systems, because if it works for both equations and makes both equations true, it is the solution. So I'm not going to work through these. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the answers for number 16, 17, and 18. And those are going to be A for 16, C for 17, B for 18, and D for 19. And again, it's just, you can watch the videos if you want to look at working them individually. We've already done some substitution, examples here. We could easily do this one by elimination, because the coefficients in front of y are the same. So that's a good example of work if you want to do elimination. And then also you could do these by graphing if you want to put these in the calculator. So you have all those options. The easiest thing to do is just to take these values and plug them in, and you can get those pretty simply. All right, let's look at number 20 and 21. Again, this is going back probably to the first unit here. We're just solving for D. Again, these are not in order of units. They're just kind of thrown in there, examples of different things everywhere. If we're solving for D here, we just need to get D by itself. So we move the -7 to the other side, which means we add it to both sides. So that'll go away. And D is going to equal a -11. So where do we have D equal to -11? It is D. So the answer to 20 is D. Number 21, just making sure you know how to deal with the signs here. You're going to have, you're going to move the -2 across. So -W equals 44. We add 2 to that side. And divide by -1, multiply by -1, or just know to move your sign across. W is going to be equal to a -44. All right, so answer to 21 is also D. Let's turn the page. On 22, a little bit more involved algebra here. We're going to have to work with several concepts that we've learned over the time, our time in Algebra 1 here. We're going to have to distribute. We're going to have to learn to distribute with a negative. We're going to have to combine like terms. And then we're going to have to solve for B. So there's several concepts that we have to deal with in problem number 22. So if we distributed our 3 into the first part of this equation, into the parentheses here, 3 times B will be 3B. 3 times 3 is 9. -4 times -2 is a +8. And then -4 times the B here is going to be a -4B. And that still all equals 19. Then I can combine like terms here, a -4B and a +3B, which will just result in a -B. I'm going to take this +9 and +8, which becomes a +17. I'm going to move that over here, and it changes the sign. So that means it's going to be a -17 from both sides. I know I'm kind of skipping some steps, but we're pretty familiar with this by now. All right, so -B equals 2. And again, we just take the negative sign to the other side, or we multiply by -1 on both sides to get rid of the negative on B, or divide -1 out of both sides to get the B positive, and we end up with B equaling a -2. The answer to 22 is C. Okay, several ways you can approach that negative issue. On number 23, we've got terms, x terms on both sides of the equation. Again, this is just a different example that we have to deal with. And I'm going to move the 5x over here to be with the 7x so I can combine those like terms. When I do, that means I'm going to add 5x here on this side. I'm going to take this +5 and I'm going to move it over here, so that means I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, so that goes away and that goes away. My resulting equation is going to be -5 and -1 on the left. 7, oh, sorry, this should be a negative. That should be -5x. 7 minus 5x will be 2x. Divide by 2, divide by 2. X is going to equal a -3. So that would be A for 23. Again, moving this 5x over here should have changed the sign, so that should be a -5x on that right side. Okay, number 24. The admission fee to an amusement park is $28. It costs an additional P dollars to rent a locker. So for one person to go to the amusement park, they're going to pay 28 plus P. They want to know how much it's going to cost for, well, they know how much it's going to cost for 5 people to enter the park and rent a locker, but they want to know how much it costs to actually rent the locker itself. So we know that 28 plus P is for one person. And we need to multiply that by 5. And we know that the total cost, they tell us, is going to be $180. $180. There's 2 ways to approach this one, and I'll just kind of talk our way through both of them real fast. We could divide by 5 on both sides, and that gets rid of the 5, and we deal with smaller numbers as we move forward. Okay, so we could divide both sides by 5, then just minus the 28 from both sides, and we have our answer. P is going to equal some value. If we need to distribute because we're more comfortable doing that, that's also fine. So we can distribute the 5, distribute the 5. We're going to end up with 140 plus 5P equals 180. So taking the distributing route here, that's what our answer would be, or the next step would be here. I'm going to subtract 140 from both sides, right? I'm going to move it across. Just changes the sign. So 5P is going to equal 40, and I'll divide by 5, divide by 5. P equals $8. So the cost of the locker is going to be $8, which is C. All right, the next 4, we're writing the sentence as an inequality. And this works out pretty good here. It gives examples of several different ways that they write things. So you need to know what some of these terms mean. No less than. No less than. Can it equal 8? Can it equal 8 or -8? It can equal it, just can't be less than, right? So that works. Can it be less than? Can it be less than? No. Can it be greater than? Yes. So look at our yeses here, our checks. Which ones can we combine, this one and this one, to know that X is going to be? Well, X is greater than or equal to -8. Does that make sense? It can be equal to, it just can't be less than, right? So it can be equal to, it can be greater than. So X has to be greater than or equal to a -8, which is D. All right, number 26. Number 26 says a difference of a number K and 8. That means we're going to take K and 8, we're going to subtract them. Well, we can get rid of that one because that's not the one, right? 8.1, sorry. Then it says it's greater than 24. Equal to? No. Just greater than. So which one is K minus 8.1 greater than 24? And that should be D on 26. This one's an easy one. They just tell us the words right out, you know, the box here. The y plus 2.4 is less than or equal to 35. We just write it as we say it here. So y plus 24 is less than or equal to 35. That one's C. And the last example here, in inequality sentences, B times 12, 12B, is at least 17. Can it be less than 17? No. Can't be less than 17. It has to be greater than or equal to 17. It's at least 17. It can be bigger, but it's at least 17. So it can't be less than 17. And so that answer there is going to be D. All right, let's see if we can work at least 29. Let's see if we can get to at least 29. And then we'll finish this up tomorrow or on the next video here if you're watching the video online. Okay, so this one we're dealing with domain and range. Which values are the domain and which values are the range? We have x's and y's. So which ones are the domain? X. And the y is the range. And remember we said that the range, who rides the range? Do you remember the little memory tip I gave you guys about the Western guy who rode the range, and there was a cool little movie? Okay, Wyatt Earp. Wyatt rides the range, right? So Y is the range. Maybe that'll help you, maybe it won't. But as long as you can remember one of them, then you can remember the other one. So I'm looking for domain and range. In this case, I'm looking for all the x values from there to there, right? These are my x values or my domain. Where do I go? Where do I go between here? X has to be between two values. And they're solid dots, so can I be equal to as well? Yes? Okay. So it's solid dots, so I am between two values for x, and the same thing for y. I'm going from on my y values all the way down to here. So this is my y, this is my range. All right, so my y is going to be the same thing. I'm going to be between two values. What two values for x am I between? -4. Yep, -4 on the left, 2 on the right. And then y values, my lowest value is down here, which is what? -4. And what is my highest value, or greatest value? +4. So this is my range. This is my domain. Which one matches up with that? A should be my answer for 29. All right, let's wrap up this video here. Hope this helps out. We'll finish this up tomorrow. Thank you guys. Have a great day.